Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of Foul Play. That's Fantasy Overwatch League play. I am DeathBlow, joined as always by Asmith. How you doing today, my friend?
Man, I am a fantastic, super fantastic. So ready for Overwatch League.
Yeah, absolutely. It is time. This is week one talk we're doing this week. Drafts are done, or at least our coverage of them is, anyways. But you can feel free. Listen, I'm going to be drafting throughout this week, throughout the first couple weeks of the season. We got the platform late. By all means, feel free to keep sending Discord questions. There's a fantasy mailbag channel in our Discord. Discord.me/High Noon Podcast. There's links on the Twitter as well at High Noon Podcast. So get in there if you want to talk fantasy. I know people have been getting really excited about it in our server there. So as your drafts continue to go on through stage one, we're happy to submit or answer any of your questions that you have. Just got to send them in over there, as we'll be focused on the meat and potatoes of the season going forward on this show. And that's it, guys. It's time to submit your week one lineups. So that's where our focus is today. We've got a full schedule of 16 games, no teams on bye week. So let's get right into it. And just as a heads up, rather than go game by game through every single one of these games, which we just did on the flagship show with myself and I play for this week, you guys can check out the flagship show if you want us to go game by game through them. Then this episode can be kind of a supplement to that. Instead, what we're going to be doing is talking to you, letting you guys know which teams play twice, who has favorable matchups that we're really keeping an eye out, that sort of thing. So we'll go team by team every week and talk about them a little bit, but we're not going to go game by game. It would just take a little bit too much time. But first, before that, we do have some news, something that I believe, misreported on or miscalculated in our analysis. I know at least I did in the article I wrote for the platform. But there was something about the way the system is going to work on highnoon.gg that we discovered this past week. Wanted to share it with you guys. The default scoring will not be counting both games for each player. Rather, it's going to take the best single match that player had for the week. Me and Asmith, I know, are a little bit split about what we think about how this is going to work. I don't think either of us think it's like a game changer, like it's not going to be playable in either form, but we do, I think, feel pretty strongly on opposite camps here. So I know we're going to be doing leagues that handle it both ways, that he's going to add in an option to allow you to count everything combined, like we've kind of been planning on and talking about our draft coverage. But Asmith, why don't you talk to us about why you like this scoring format a little bit?
Look, I was a big fan of it when I heard about it. I know that throwing out scores can be tough, but I've done fantasy basketball, and I'm not personally as big of a fan of it as I am of fantasy football, mainly because of the format that if you play more games, you're a more valuable player. That just seems like a system where the best players don't always get rewarded. You're going to end up playing worse players simply because they have more games, whereas this rewards the better players. You don't throw out the fact that the only time you throw them out is somebody when they have a bye week. So you're still going to have a waiver wire. It's still going to be active. It's not going to be as active, which I don't think it should be crazy active, like insane. And it should be more active in deeper leagues. But I mean, you're going to start your better players typically, but you still have a lot of choices because when a team's playing two, you have a 2-for-1 chance. So, I mean, you're still going to weigh the matchups individually. Your player who played 2 matches could end up scoring less than your player who played 1. And I like the option that gives you because you're weighing each matchup individually and testing it. You have to think still, but for the day-to-day user, you don't have to manage every single moment of every single game. It's a lot less thinking on the individual user, and it's a lot less having to pay attention who drops when, who does this, and I get that hardcore fantasy users are gonna like that and they're gonna want that. But if you think about the average player is going to be a little more less likely, and for that reason, I mean, you've got to play towards the average and the player who's going to play it more often. You want more players to use your platform, whereas less, because if it's so difficult to manage and to do the whole time, then you're going to have less options.
Well, to directly kind of counter the last point a little bit, you want the average user to be competitive, but you also want the person that commits the time and the effort to have the ability to reap the rewards a little bit. And I'm not sure this
Sure.
really would do that, but it may be taking
Hmm.
away an avenue for a savvy fantasy owner to kind of outplay somebody. And at least from our perspective, I think the
Hmm.
fantasy savvy players that are participating in Fantasy Overwatch League are the ones absorbing podcast content. So at least from our fan perspective, I think more people would kind of at least like it from that side and as far as our viewers go. But you're not wrong to think about the average player and the success of the platform, things like that. As a fantasy player, I don't have to care, but as the person making the decisions sure does. And we want to see them succeed as well. So, but for me, the reason it bothers me is like, I don't like the idea of some stats being more valuable than others. And in this case, some of them being cherry picked and like removed. And I put in my notes here when I wrote it out. Name another popular fantasy sport that cherry picks some games and discounts others. You did that in your explanation. I've never played fantasy basketball, so props to you on that one. But yeah, and I don't like the idea that like, I'm supposed to care more, and as a fantasy owner that wants to watch my players, I don't like the idea of wanting to watch my team body the Chengdu Hunters more than I want to see them play in a really good match against New York, let's say. I want to. I want them to count. I don't want to be sitting there watching one of my guys perform and then be like, oh, well, he got 2 less points than this one than he did in the other one. That just feels strange to me. Yeah, I want to highlight the good Overwatch, not the awful games, and I think that's the system kind of takes us the
But
wrong direction there.
but does it really? I'm just curious because typically we've had the longer, the more important games, the more stats because this doesn't discount for kills. So really, the longer games go, the better it is.
There's definitely give and take to that, and I'll concede that it's not definitely going to do that, but I guess in the sense that in my head more games are decided 3-0 or 4-0 than are 3-2. I don't know. I just think it more often than not it's going to turn out to like my 3-1 even if it's a loss for my team. I don't know. I just feel like that would be more exciting to watch than like I don't know. Somebody like a team I don't care about 4-0 dumpster a team that sucks and I don't care about. Anyways. None of this is obviously set in stone either, and I could play out both of them and decide I like the other one way more in the end. Definitely, certainly possible, but my biggest issue here is, to me, looking at the way this works out, is there's about 15 supports that are worth playing right now, and you need to play 16 to 20 depending on league size, assuming you're 8 to 10. You're not going to have, the flex support on Chengdu, or I'm using Chengdu as my default 20 team. Sorry, Chengdu fans, but prove me wrong and then I'll stop doing it. But like your flex support on Chengdu is not going to be valuable anymore. Whereas before he had value derived from like he's going to play twice and he's in a position that's short on value. So I think we took the support line and really kind of hampered it a little bit as well, which I think is the one position that definitely couldn't afford to sustain that. I think we did something similar with the tank position as well, though it's obviously much more capable and resilient to that because the main tanks aren't as dead to the fantasy world as the main supports are, or at least we're projecting them to be. But yeah, so I don't know. I feel like we might have created a similar significant shortage of tank players. And then you mentioned the waiver wire. I think it's going to be significantly less active. I think the waiver wire is a lot of the fun of fantasy. It's when you have a bad draft, it's less of a thing in Overwatch. But like, let's say you get shadow burned. Like, where would I have been last year without the waiver wire? Oh, exactly where I was, because there was no waiver wire, and it was really frustrating. There was a waiver wire, but it was just really bad and hard to use because the league was so shallow. It was really hard to play fantasy last year, though. Props to you if you stuck through it like we did and got through the season. But yeah, in closing, I'm just going to say I wouldn't run a 10-man league with the default scoring system. I would stick to 8 or maybe 6 to give yourself a little bit of that flexibility in the waiver wire. I'm okay playing in leagues that are set up like this. Obviously, in fantasy, that's my one rule, right? Like, I have my opinions. I'm very opinionated. I'm stubborn. But like when it comes time to drafting, or it comes time to like doing a league, until I know, I'm very open to the possibility that I'm just super wrong on like a player or something like that, and why not on a scoring format as well. we gotta try it before I can completely knock it. So I know I'll be running leagues both ways. We did our Foul Play Expert League draft this past week. We're going to be running that league using all scoring, and then I think we did the All by the Numbers Podcasters League, which is less like fantasy specific content creators and more just Overwatch content creators. I don't know for sure that's Totemly's league, but I think he hasn't said anything about changing it from the default. So presumably we'll be using the default there. So like last year, we had old format, new format. We'll be kind of talking about both things as well. If we're not going to play all the different possible methods, who is? So we definitely feel at least a little obligated to try them both. All right. I think that just about covers it. Anything to add there?
I think you've covered most of it there. I mean, it's so you got to pay attention ultimately, and I think that was something we overlooked, and that's something you can't afford to do is overlook any rules in fantasy wise. When you're paying attention to things, you're going to need to pay attention closely, especially when they add the possibility of blocking and tanks. That's another thing that you got to watch out for.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I put in my drafting 101 article that was up on the highnoon.gg site. Was like, know your league, like special formats, special scoring, completely invalidate everything else draft strategy wise, right? Like you can just, knowing what guys in your league is going to do is such valuable information. Knowing all the rules is so important. Less of a thing in fantasy Overwatch because there's less rules options, things you can change to make it different, but definitely still very important. Know what your league is doing before you go into the draft and draft accordingly. And I'm telling you right now, your first 2 picks should probably be flex support players if you're using the default, because that position is going to get dry very, very quick.
Very good.
All right, let's move into the meat and potatoes here of this episode. We're going to be talking about the who do I start? I don't know. We might come up with a catchy name for it. But this is where we go team by team down all 20 of the teams in Overwatch League. We're going to tell you who they play, how many games they play, whether we think they're good or bad matchups. You want to just alternate here, Asmith? How you want to do this?
Yeah, let's alternate.
Right, lead us off.
Last year we did Pacific Atlantic. I don't know. I feel like this year we need to mix it up.
Yeah, I didn't divide them that way this year, so we're starting this way.
That's good. He will not divide us. That's good. It's good. I'm just kidding. All right, we're going to kick it off with Philly because they were number 2, and for some reason we don't have London up top. So they play London right off the bat, and they play Atlanta. 2 very, I would say, tougher matchups, especially London. I like Philly's options here. I think playing Philly players, most everyone, Sato and Fraggy is the one where you're going to be like, I don't know. And unless you're on Blackwatch Report, Neptune, OL, and Elk, maybe. But, I mean, Philly players are mostly going to be startable all the way around unless there's a bye week. But I would start your Philly players this week. I think they're going to have competitive games.
Yeah, no disagreements there. Kind of a tough matchup and an easy matchup. If you kind of think the expansion teams will be on the easier side in the early stages. Moving on, we've got London, another team with 2 games. All the team with 2 games are going to be at the top. They're going against the Philadelphia Fusion and the Paris Eternal. So this is, to me, kind of the same exact slate Philly has. London really trimmed down their roster quite a bit. I think you can use everybody with confidence that you're expecting to start, because they're going to start. That includes Birdring, who maybe I was lower on should I draft him than would I start him this week. So I think he's kind of a no-brainer must play as well. And I think as far as both of these teams are concerned, 2 matchups in a week is still a benefit for your players because it's a second opportunity to perform really, really well. So I would be auto starting all of your London guys as well. If you drafted them to be starters, play them.
I got a question. Do you think Krillin or Guardian, or is it Guard or Krillin and Guard will play?
Krillin's a flex support, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
No. I think he's a main support.
I'm not 100%. I'm looking him up right now. He's flex. I don't think Krillin does. Doesn't really have the experience coming from anywhere. I do think there's a chance Guard does, but I think Guard is there for if Birdring falters, not to spell him in the meantime. That's just a gut. I mean, listen, if you've got, Carpe and Linkser, you don't need to play Bird Ring, so maybe don't. Yeah. But depending on how your draft went, where you put the DPS, I wouldn't overthink too much on the Bird Ring versus Guard dilemma. Don't expect that change until you see that change.
Yeah, I will say one thing. I did catch up on a podcast with I can't remember who it was. It was Oversight, the mega 3-hour bajillion thing. but they were talking a lot of the pro players were talking about the possibility of triple DPS meta coming in. Not all the time, but there's a strong possibility we may see some triple DPS. So be wary of first season, the first week, because we don't have any idea what this meta is going to be.
Yeah, we really don't, and people really are leaning on goats, and we're kind of forced to assume goats, but I won't even really be surprised at all if we see minimal goats straight out of the gate, to be perfectly honest. It's been a long time since the best players in the world have gotten to sit down and play on one of these patches and show us what their strategies are and hide nothing, and so getting back to that could be a bit of a shock. We might not really know where the meta is. It's definitely a fair point there. Yeah. All right, so we're moving on.
Yeah, let's go to Nixle. NYXL, they're playing Boston and Washington. Hey, 2 cans to crush right off the bat. You're going to see NYXL flex like none other. It's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining. You're probably going to see all 4 DPS, 5 DPS. How many DPS do they have? Do they have like 12?
6.
Did they sign all 12?
6, dude.
I'm just saying, all 12? Who knows? You're going to see all of them because they're going to have cans to crush, and this is going to be fun to watch. But very, very questioning here on what you're going to do.
Yeah, your
fantasy players.
Your tanks and your supports.
Mono's not coming out, so.
Yeah, your tanks and your supports are safe, but that was what I was going to ask you is, what are you doing with the DPS? I mean, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Libero's the one that I think any of us would be considering, at least the most likely to be considering. So are you willing to play Libero with the unknown?
I'm not going to lie. Week 1, looking at their schedule, I wouldn't. Because they're probably going to crush these teams so hard that they're going to throw in subs left and right. I'm just, the way I'm looking at it, I wouldn't start any of their DPS unless you have to.
So I'm trying to think of somebody that you're kind of down on where I can give you a comparison. Okay, let's say you've got Libero who plays twice, and then you've got, I'm trying to think, Kariv, who only plays once. Who are you starting?
Ooh, new, counting both or counting one?
Counting both.
Counting both. I'll probably, yikes, that's tough.
Right?
I'll probably lean towards Libero, but I think honestly it's a coin flip.
Yeah, that's
tough. But I'm not sold on Kariv being the main starter either. So that's another question. So I'd probably go Libero just because I'm not sold on Kariv being the 100% starter.
I tried to pick one where you would definitely be sold on the starter. So I failed there. But and it's a really tough question to ask week 1, and that's why a lot of your roster decisions this week need to just be about safety. For my money,
safety first.
Then teamwork. For my money in that situation, I'm playing Libero, but I'm super nervous about it because I think they're almost too easy matchups, right? Like they're going to go out there and they're going to stomp Boston, but like if they get ahead easy on Washington and they're up 2-0, I mean, we could be looking at like any of the DPS players could come in at that point. Like all bets are off. So it's definitely a little nerve-wracking there. And we also don't know. I mean, we say they're going to crush Boston. We don't know that means put Libero on the field. We really just don't. So,
yeah,
he's the one that feels the safest, and you can tell we're super, super not confident in it.
Yeah, it's nuts. I can't even.
All right, so moving on, we're going to talk about the Boston Uprising.
Team.
Nope. And they have 2 matchups this week going against the New York Excelsior and my favorite team, the Houston Outlaws. Notably, Boston has Color Hex suspended this week, so only Blasé is available for DPS. That puts both of these matchups to me squarely in the negative column. I'm not sure I'm fully buying into the demise of Boston like a lot of people are trying to sell, but there's clearly, I mean, something's rotten in the state of Denmark. That's a saying. I don't know where it comes from, but that's a saying. You know, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a lot of disgruntled players that left the team. Something's not right there, whether that shows as much as people are predicting it will on the stage. I don't know, but I know having a big gaping hole in your lineup in the DPS spot and needing to fill it with a tank or a support can be very, very tricky. They might get away with it if Goats is kind of a big thing and remains the main composition. They might not have a big problem, but I have questions about Gamzu playing Reinhardt and the team overall strategically being able to prepare a death ball strategy and succeed with it. Not really something we've seen from Boston yet. So
expect Goats. Expect Goats.
Yeah, honestly, I think you have to. As far as fantasy players, listen, we've got 2 games. I don't care if they're good matchups, bad matchups. I'm playing Note. I'm playing Aim God, and that's probably where it stops for me for right now. Anybody else you'd be willing to play, Asmith?
No. I don't think. Honestly, I'm not even sure those players are going to be safe. Aim God may be one of your lowest scoring supports.
That's true.
This week.
That should keep him top 20 and playable still, but
Yeah.
You're definitely not wrong. I would maybe consider Blase if I was really, really hard off. They're just not going to be able to bench him. So if all my maps count and I'm getting 8 maps out of a DPS player, I don't care how many times he dies. It doesn't matter. Just shoot him a bunch. He won't go negative on you, I guess is what I'm getting at. Maybe another interesting name to kind of throw into that Kareev Libero conversation.
Yeah, Axiom might do well too. Who knows?
He could. I mean, he's probably who I'd pencil in to fill in. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting because he's the one that's notably the Reinhardt player on the team. Gamzu's notably not. So Gamzu might not even start. That's why I'm not willing to play him right now just until I see it. But I think draft-wise, you probably took 2 tanks before you had to take Gamzu. So you should be okay there. All right, A. Smith, who's next?
All right, we got Seoul. They're playing Gladiators in Dallas. I like both these matchups for Seoul. You're gonna see kind of where Seoul is. I think neither of these teams they're playing are top tier. I think Gladiators are higher than Dallas right now tier wise, but I think Seoul is decent tier wise as well. And you're gonna see players like Fleta, Fisher, Jae Hong. I think those 3 players are easy starts. Munchkin is probably a pretty good start as well. I'm Zumba. I feel like Zumba is a pretty good start, but I can't say with 100% certainty. But if I were a betting man, I'd say Zumba is going to get a lot of play time, and I'm not sold that Toby's going to be his main starter. But if you're starting a main support, don't start one from Seoul. So, I mean, I like all of these options. These are all 100% yes, I'd start them if you have them on your team.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add there. Wouldn't be surprised if Seoul was 2-0 or 0-2 or anywhere in between after this weekend. But that's good for fantasy. We don't mind close matchups. We like map 5s, things like that. So fire up your Seoul players. As far as one of their opponents goes, they're next, the Los Angeles Gladiators, because there is no rhyme or reason to how this list is ordered. But yeah, they play against the Seoul Dynasty and the San Francisco Shock. I'm going to call these tough matchups because like San Francisco and Seoul are both teams that could have leveled up. We're looking at the Gladiators, who aren't in their final form right now because Decay is, I believe, still 17 years old. Hey, Smith, can you correct me there? Do you know?
I don't know how old Decay is.
I know he's not suspended, and I know he can't play for a couple weeks, so presumably that's because of age. So, yeah, they're not quite at full strength, and I think there's a chance the Gladiators could get beaten up this week. I'm not betting on it. I think I picked them to go 1-1 if I'm remembering correctly from the show I did immediately before this. Why I can't remember, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a little bit rough for the Gladiators. This could, I don't know, maybe it shouldn't be a bad matchup. Maybe it should just be a whatever because there's map 5 potential here. Yeah, I'm going to take it off of a bad matchup, put it to a regular.
I've got Decay at 17. He turns 18 on the 27th of February.
Okay, so at the end of the month, so we're going to be missing him for a few weeks. Yeah, so that means to me hydration is startable. Might not even be owned in your league, but he's an early fill-in, somebody you can pick up right now if you don't like your DPS options or worried about goats. It would take something goats like to really bring them down. They can't even like bring in the third support and play Ripa because he's got a 5-game suspension he's dealing with.
Best support in the league.
Best support in the league. Insider Discord joke. But yeah, so I think you can really reasonably play all your gladiators here with confidence. If you drafted Roar, we don't have to wonder, is he going to play? They did elevate Panker to a 2-way contract, but I can't imagine they're going to use him. I really think until we see two-way players come in, I'm assuming they're still on their contenders rosters. So no issue with playtime there. You can play all your gladiators with confidence. Anything to add?
All right. No, I like that. I like what you're saying there. I think all 6 gladiator players actually will play and will probably get good playtime. Yeah. That's including you, the biggest of geese. I'm gonna kick it off with Shanghai. Look, will Shanghai get their win? Who cares? Will they get fantasy points? We don't know, because guess what? They're missing a main tank. Yeah, they have no main tank because Fearless. No one actually knows what's wrong because they didn't say anything. They just said he went back to China or Korea for, reasons health-wise. But
I think so. Yeah, he was like recovering from surgery or something like that.
Did they? Because some people were saying it was like mental health. So I don't know. I have to
go back. I was very under the impression that he was like recovering or recuperating from surgery.
I don't know. Regardless, he's not here. He's in Korea. So Shanghai has no main tank. Who knows who's actually going to play that position? We might see Kaguri go there and Guardian. Yeah, it's Guardian. There we go. Guardian playing the off tank on this. Their DPS is going to be a little confusing. I expect. I think Luffy, their flex DP or flex support is going to be a primary option. Their other players, it's so questioning because I think Diem is definitely going to play, and then from there it's probably going to be Ding. If I were a betting man, I'd say Diem and Ding, but I wouldn't start any of them with confidence week 1. Diem may be the only one you might start. Other than that, Diem, Luffy, I would stay away from the other ones. And even then, they still might get rolled. They're playing Hangzhou and Vancouver, which are both expansion teams. So we don't know what to expect with those teams.
Yeah, I'm basically hands off of all Shanghai players right now. I have a lot of shares of Diem and Ding on my teams, so I'm not happy about this main tank situation, but I'm really worried about what they're just going to look like as a team. The DPS were able to score points for them and be, decent fantasy assets, but not people you want to like plan on starting when they were just an awful team. And presumably even without a main tank, they'll be better this year than last year, but I'm very nervous now, and I need to see it. And I didn't have to take any Shanghai players in a position where I'm forced to use them in week 1. So in the time being, there's not one of them I'm willing to play outside of Luffy, and the flex support position, super shallow. I'm really worried we're looking at the actual worst team in the league again, Asmith, until they get a main tank player in.
Really? Worse than Chengdu? Worse than Chengdu?
Chengdu has a main tank player.
I'm still not sold that Chengdu's even better with a main tank player.
You might not be wrong, and they'll probably be at 19 in my rankings, but it's terrifying to me. If they
worse than Boston without a DPS, literally they only have 1 DPS.
Yes.
I don't know, man.
I don't think there's a more important position. I think Shanghai and Toronto have a chance to prove me very right. And I think the worst position to be missing is your main tank. And I think the second worst position to be missing is your flex support. And I don't think it's particularly close starting the conversation of who's missing at number 3. It just seems like everybody plays a little bit of diva because they like to win in comp, and you know what I mean? Like everybody has a DPS pick they can go to if they need to because they like to win in comp. And but your main tanks are so important to me, to team synergy. What have they been scrimming with this whole time? Like I just don't. I'm terrified of Shanghai. It doesn't need to go completely in the dumpster and be, back down to the bottom, but I just watched them go 0-40, and I think at 0-30, I was like, it can't possibly happen. That's not how the law of large numbers works. And now I'm here, and I'm a different person because Shanghai has sucked so bad, and here we are. So I'm worried about them. I just can't wrap my head around them with any sort of confidence. But moving on. We've got the Hangzhou Spark. They have 2 matches here against Shanghai and the Valiant. I'm calling this one kind of even. This is a very interesting team because I think the hype. I like Hangzhou. I like their prospects this year. I think the hype's gone a little overboard on this team. I think people are forgetting that not one of these guys played in Overwatch League last year. I do think that counts for something. We'll see how much. I know you have questions about who the tank starters will be. I love Gushui. I think he's definitely going to start here. Crystal is out for 1 game here, so keep that in mind if you have him on your roster and are considering playing him. You'll only have him for the second matchup, so consider him, on the other list of one matchup players. If you're in that league, he could be fine. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. I've got a lot of Godsby on my teams here. I'm waiting though for the most part on the Hangzhou Spark because I much like I was talking about with Diem and them, I didn't take these guys in a position where I'm forced to play them and need to use them right away. So I'm going to wait, and I think it could be a little detrimental, but since there is a question at main tank, I'm not starting Gushui if I own him. I don't yet anywhere because somebody's always a little higher on him than I am. And yeah, I mean, I think you can confidently play Bebe. I think he's going to be the flex support, but I wouldn't if I had any other option. That's kind of my point. There's question marks here, and just wait and get the answer is kind of my thought on Hangzhou. But yeah, I think if you paid for Gushui and you don't have a better option, roll him out.
Yeah, that's possible. I think the only surefire starters on that team are Rhea because he's the only off tank on the team, and I think Godsby is going to start, especially with Crystal not there. I think it's Andorra and Bazzi may switch on and off, and that's pretty much it. I mean, Rhea's probably your best surefire starter there.
Definitely a viable option. And I like what you said about Godsby. I don't imagine he comes out. My hesitance to start him is just I don't know how good he is.
Godsby, he's flexible, man. He's good and he's flexible.
I know his hero pool is huge, so they'll find ways to use him no matter what. It's just the first week in Overwatch League versus the big lights. Do you blink? Those are my questions about him.
But they're playing Shanghai.
You're not wrong, but I don't. It's just safety first. Fair. Safety first. All right. I'm jumping in. You're not doing it on me. I'm going straight into Houston. I didn't take it out. I should have, but we'll let you do the same thing for Dallas when we get there.
Okay. I would have had Dallas anyway.
Yeah. You'll just do the next 2. Houston's got 2 matchups. They go against Toronto and they go against Boston. Each opponent for Houston this week is missing an irreplaceable starter. And by that, I mean there's nobody on the roster that plays the position normally. So Neko and Color Hex are down. That's going to really open the door for Houston here. I think you're got to look at them as probably 2-0 after the first week. Even if you're a doubter, the missing pieces for these teams help a lot for Houston. So it's going to be really interesting to see. As far as the DPS goes, I would play Linkser because if I own him, I paid for him like he's a starter. Though I am a little nervous that maybe he's not 4 maps every single match, especially in a GOATS meta. He does play Zarya a little bit, but it's far from a world beater, and if Zarya's a mainstay in the lineup, that'll be Spree's job. So Spree could actually sub in for Linkser. Not anything I'm overly worried about. I'd still use him, but across the board, I'm not touching either of the off tanks right now because I don't know who's going to play. And I'm as unconfident in Raucus as I'll ever be because there's a small chance Bonnie is going to be the flex support. I think Boink will be the main support, but before Bonnie picked up Mercy to play that for this team last season, he was a flex support player. So he played Zenyatta for Team Canada at the World Cup, for example, and it's definitely something he's done. Notably, he was the I'm blanking on what team he played on before Houston, but I know he was their Sombra player when Sombra was the responsibility of flex support, for example.
Before Houston, he was on Coolmat's team, the Hot Dogs.
Fenergaphy, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but listen, Raucus is another one. The supports are not deep enough to play around with. Just put him out there. If you're wrong, or if it's wrong, fix it next week. You'll be fine with an 0-1 start, or you might not even lose just because you got one player wrong. Because who knows? Maybe your opponent started somebody that got benched too. But yeah, I'm staying away from the DPS for now. Other than Linkser, I want to let that play out. I'm staying away from the off tanks. I want to see how that works. Muma is locked and loaded, ready to go. By all means, play him. He should have a great statistical week, considering I think he's going to have 2 decently easy victories here on his hands.
I agree with you there, man. I'll take Atlanta here. They got Florida and Philly. It'll be interesting matchups for Atlanta. I actually like the matchups they've got here. I think Dako and Pokpo are going to be both very startable options for tanks. Yes, you can be hesitant, but that's all they have for tanks. So they're going to be surefire starters. They are playing Florida, who is a very, very questionable team. And then they have Philly, which, I mean, even if they get beat, they're still going to get stats. So I think Kodak is probably going to be your starter. Dogman signed really, really late. I was a lot higher on Kodak before Dogman got inducted to the team. And I think they're probably a very similar skill level. So we'll see. I think Erster and DeFran. I think McFran actually might be a very, very strong pick this week. He could be a very, very good pick for this week. Anyways, so I don't know. I think their tanks are definitely surefire starts. I would be hesitant on their others. I think Erster probably can go ahead and get the go. They don't have anybody suspended this week, do they? Or I don't know, man. I feel like almost all the teams do. Yeah, okay. I'm looking at the list. They don't. So yeah. I mean, I go with both their tanks. Dako, Pokpo, probably Erster and DeFran are probably go ahead and goes. If you have Kodak and you don't have another flex support, I'd play him. If you don't have a third flex support that you could put in that position. So and then I will take Dallas. Yes, I finally get it. It's here. The season's here. We've got the new coach. We've got a few players that are different. I'm so excited about our pickups. But hey, we're playing San Francisco and we're playing Seoul. San Francisco did a little bit of an overhaul. Notably, Violet is suspended, so Sleepy will be playing. Look, they're playing 2 games. They both could end up being close games. I have no idea what they're going to do with their DPS. I would venture to say Effect's going to play and not come out. And then I would venture to say I think Unko is a sure start on that team. OGE is a sure start on that team. Other than that, I think those 3 players are probably most likely sure starts. The season has Effect is in the country. He hasn't been here long enough to have a mental breakdown. So unless after game 1 he has a mental breakdown and leaves, I think we're okay.
Yeah, playing Effect. If you own Effect, you have to play him. He's their Zarya player, so it's possible he's like their off tank at the end of the day.
It's true.
And so he might not ever leave the stage from that perspective. I just don't imagine a world where Effect spends much time not on the stage for as long as they have him.
Yeah.
Memes aside, I don't want to go too deep down, like predicting that he's not gonna play again. So hopefully everything's fine there, and you're not worrying about when is he back and things like that later on. But either way, you drafted him, you got him, so use him. OGE's a great play, Unko's a great play, and then otherwise I'm staying away just to see what goes on there. Moving along though, for the last of the teams that have 2 matchups this week, we've got the San Francisco Shock. They play against the Dallas Fuel and the Los Angeles Gladiators. San Francisco's an interesting team. We talked about Violet a couple times already. I think Sleepy is a very viable player for this week. Obviously, 2 matchups and a flex support that's not going to be leaving the stage. It's not something you can turn your nose up at. So if you've got a flex support, you bought into them late, consider going and picking up Sleepy before the first week. You might be able to get some value out of him. I know I saw him get drafted a little bit in some later rounds in some leagues, so he might not be available, but something to keep an eye on. He'll be more valuable this week than ever again all season long. Trying to think what else. I'm staying away from the main tanks for now. I do think it's going to be Smurf's job, but in a Reinhardt meta, it's very, very possible that Super gets that job there. I'm very all in on Choi Hyobin and not worried about Nevik, so I'm fine starting him. Striker and Architect, you paid for starting DPS players, so use them. There is some question there, but I that's one of the ones where I have a lot of questions about playtime, where I'm not worrying about it. I'm just rolling them out there. If the team's 3/4 as good as some people are predicting them to be, the DPS players will always find value, even if they sit a map or two. As long as they play twice, they should be locked and loaded. Good starts. Anything to add for San Fran? And if not, lead us off with the first one team.
No, I think you got it all. I'm going to take Chengdu. Yay, I get the new Shanghai Dragons. I mean, what? Who said that? Yeah, it was me. I think they're going to get rolled. Play in Guangzhou, and yes, we've never seen either of these teams, but look, Yangzhelang is not in the country yet because of visa issues. I believe I have not seen anything that tells me differently. That means that Bacon Jack and Jimnu are going to be their starting DPS. So you know for sure that's going to happen. Other than that, I have no idea what you're going to do because I couldn't tell you. I think Late Young's probably going to start. I think Jaquarian's going to start, but I don't even know if he's in the country yet.
I would be hard-pressed to imagine that he is in the country yet, though.
It's possible.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm running out the door to start a Meng either way. So.
yeah. I mean, I'm not. Honestly, I think none of these players are startable unless all of your players are. No. You know what? I take it back. None of them are startable. Don't start anybody. They're playing one match and they're playing Guangzhou. Bacon Jack has been playing PUBG for the last year. Jinmu wasn't even like the best player in China. Like, it's not like he was like amazing, super amazing. He was good, but I mean, I can't in my right mind advise anybody to start any Chengdu players week 1.
No, definitely don't. If they were in 2 matchups, I'd say go ahead and take your shot on Late Young if you want to. But Late Young and Yveltal are really the only players in this team I actively like. So Yveltal being a main support isn't startable. Late Young, I'm going to take this week where he only plays once, see how he does. If they get bodied by Guangzhou, I think we're pretty close to having our answer on them, and you might even be able to like cut players like Late Young. But yeah, it's a rough situation for them, without a doubt. Moving along, their opponent, the Guangzhou Charge, they are again playing against Chengdu. They're a bit of an interesting team. To me, I like what they have. I like what they're building towards, but I'm not quite there yet where I want to play them. If you're playing in the default format where only the best counts, I think Happy could be worth a flyer. It's a little risky, but I think him and Eileen are the likely DPS duo there. The other options speak English and aren't really able to communicate with the team.
They're actually calming in English.
Are they really?
Rumor has it they're calming in English because between their Chinese, Korean, and American players, they all learned English as a second language. So they're calming in English is from everything that we've heard. They're commenting in English.
Well,
so
regardless, unless we're talking about a dive meta, I still think Eileen and Happy is the most likely DPS duo. Mm-hmm. again, if it's default format, I'd be willing to play Hotba, but I'm not super confident in it. Rio, and a lot of this is just because of the opponent, right? Like I might play Rio because I feel more confident against Chengdu than I would against most other teams. I'm staying away from the support situation for now. There's 4 of them. I could see a lot of different support combos coming out of them. I don't know a lot about them, haven't watched them a ton, but man, you look at their hero pools and it's like a mess. There's like a Mercy Specialist in there. There's a Zenyatta one trick, and there's like a Zenyatta slash Lucio play. Like there's just a lot of crazy hero pools, for at least from what Wikipedia is giving me on them, and it just makes me nervous. And I don't think they're a team where you invested enough where you like have to play them.
Hang on 2 seconds.
Like I'm just going to keep
the next one.
I was going to say, I'm just going to keep going because that's how live shows work, Asmith. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm staying away from Guangzhou for now. But again, if it's default scoring, I think you can get away with one of the DPS if you need to. And then the tanks, if you were planning on using them, are fine. I would personally lean towards Hotba a little bit. Moving on, though, we've got, are you back? Good to go?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, then just lead us off with Paris.
All right, Paris Eternal. They are playing the London Spitfire, and hate to break it to you, but they're going to get rolled. It's going to be not the kind of game you want to watch. Soon, Shadowburn are most likely their starters. However, if it is, I mean, I don't see this working out here. I'm just looking at this, and I can't see any reason why you want to start them. Even if it's best one, I think it's not going to be a great pick. I think Soon, who's probably a surefire starter the whole time, I think that's a problem. You don't know who their starting flex support is. Don't know who their starting main tank is. You got questions all over the board. You just worry there, and even with best game, I think really he's probably not a starting option because they're playing such a strong team right off the bat.
Yeah, the only one I'm even tempted by personally is Shadowburn. I think he's not really matchup proof because obviously you still need kills, but I just feel like he's a very consistent, even keeled player. He's going to get his damage numbers and be okay, but nobody I'm excited by any means to start. And like you said, this is a team. Anybody I drafted from Paris, I did it for the weeks when they play twice, and for when they, if you're in the format where they both count. In the default format, I don't think your Paris players are going to be super viable unless your Soons and your Shadowburns get good matchups against some soft teams. Then I think you'll swap them in a little bit. But moving on, we've got Washington. Man, speaking of teams that are just going to get crushed, they play against New York. Don't do it, guys. Like, that's literally my only analysis that I have for you on this game. Just stay away. It's going to be pretty ugly, I would have to assume. Anybody I'd even consider starting? No, I don't have much confidence in Sansam. Ado's playtime is the only thing. I can't imagine they have the ability or flexibility to bench him. But I just don't see the performance being good enough against that opponent to really warrant it. So I would stay away.
You don't think Jonas is going to get his sweet revenge? Yeah, me either.
Nope.
All right. All right. You got Vancouver next. They're playing the Shanghai Dragons. In a best game situation, I think a lot of their players are going to be startable. I think Twilight is pretty much a for sure start. I think Janu on the off tank is definitely a for sure start. Bumper's going to start. From there, I think Haxall is also going to be a start. Can't tell you with 100% certainty. They do have three other DPS. But if I were a betting man, if you're playing in a single format, I think most of them are going to be very startable options. However, in a two-man format, it's going to be tough.
I think I'd still play him, but I have just that little faith in tankless Shanghai.
Yeah, I was like, it depends on who you got. If you got Boston players or Shanghai players as the other options there, maybe start them over them. But I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine them scoring more points than a team like Atlanta. Here, thought here. Do you see someone like Janu scoring more points than Pakpo on Atlanta, playing 2 games, whereas Janu's playing 1, even if they win? Because I can't.
Not in this situation because Florida's on the schedule, but like let's say it was like New York and Philly or something like that. Like I would kind of be on board. It's a situation where I think Twilight is fine because the support depth is lacking, and I think there's a good chance that he really racks them up. I think Janu's is a decent starter in the everything counts. Where I think you might be surprised that I'd use people, it would be Hacksaw, mostly just because I would rather play him in a situation where I feel confident he's going to be there for 4 maps. Where what if I'm like, I waited on DPS, which is my honestly my strategy in most of my drafts. Just wait forever on DPS, and like I'm sitting there with, looking for a third DPS player, and I've got like Dante or Jake or somebody like that that's in a situation where playtime is very up in the air, and maybe not a move I'd make in week 2, but like I just know Hacksaw is going to get me a baseline, really good performance from 1 game, so I'm fine with that if like playtime is at all in doubt. Hacksaw versus Libero.
Okay, that is. I'd take Hacksaw there.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing. Libero is just going to be our default.
Yeah, right.
Just who knows how much he's going to play. At least for, the other 3 teams we have left to do. If we have any other comparisons, we'll just default to using Libero. So yeah, I think there's some value to be had there just because I think Vancouver is going to be able to kind of mop the floor with a main tankless Shanghai team who, Runaway versus Kongdu Panthera, we kind of already know who the better team is amongst those. And now we're talking about potentially the best 2 players in Roar and Decay not being there, and then the replacement for Roar is not there, so you got somebody out of role. I can't express to you how just shaky I think the whole Shangdu, that's a good one. We're going to use that. The Shanghai situation. I think it just terrifies me. So I think Vancouver could be okay despite 1 match. Who do you got next here, Asmith?
Next we just did Vancouver. Yeah, Valiant. I've got the Valiant here. Look, Valiant, good team. They're playing Hangzhou. I think it'll be a very good matchup for them. I think they'll take them, and I think it'll be possibly a close game. With that being said, I'm not 100% sure exactly who their starters on DPS are going to be. Kariv, we've seen him play DPS before. He was pretty good, but we've seen Bunny play, and Bunny's not bad. I venture to say Agility's Fate, Space, Izayaki are all set in stone players. Custa, he's a main support. What are you gonna do? And
leagues, if you were planning to use him, he's fine.
Yeah. Agilities is probably set in stone there. So I think Kariv is your biggest question mark. He has probably one of the highest upsides, and Kariv, Libero, we had that question already. That's a very serious question. Now, if it's Agilities and Libero, I'll probably take Agilities in that matchup. I think Agility's going to play every single map. So with that being said, there you go. So if you have the Agilities, Libero, if you don't know if this person's going to play all the time, they may only be out half the games. They may not be competitive games. If that's the case, then roll with a player like Agilities, or roll with a tank like Space or Fate. I know you paid top dollar for probably both of those tanks. So, Izayaki, you probably paid a high price for Izayaki. If you're not sure about the 2 teams, roll out your guys.
I did pay a high price for Izayaki. You're not wrong. They're an interesting, it's a solid matchup situation. Maybe not super solid, but I just feel like coming in against an opponent there. So if this is a best performance default scoring, I think your Valiant players are fine. Use them like you drafted to for sure. Moving on, we've got Toronto. This is going to be a quick one. They only play against Houston. They don't have their flex support this week. They won't have them next week either. I have a hard time imagining big performances from any of your Toronto players. I think like best case scenario here for them is like a 3-2 win against Houston, given they don't have Neko, who is arguably their best player, to be perfectly honest, regardless of position. So it's going to be a little rough there. I think I heard Asher's likely to be playing the Zenyatta role for them.
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable with Asher playing his main role for them, let alone a substitute role. So I think odds are it's going to be kind of a one-sided affair, and they're going to be on the wrong side of it. So I'm staying completely away from everybody Toronto, because the only time I want to play somebody in a bad situation is if it's a flex support, and that's who's suspended. So anything to add there?
No, I think you're right there. I'd be wary of Toronto.
Wrap us up for Florida.
All right,
the only time I'll highlight them in green, I think, ever.
You've got them highlighted green, and I'm still not certain about that. I would borderline highlight them a murky yellow.
It's because it's as good as it gets ever.
You're not wrong. So, but good gosh, I mean, with the announcement that SNT is going to be now a coach / player / what the crap are they doing? Okay, I mean, come on. I think Hagopen is startable. I think. Oh God, I don't even want to say this. Is Zephyr actually startable?
Let's just talk about Saya player instead.
I think I'm gonna throw up in my mouth a little bit. Yeah, Saya player. I think he's a startable option. I'm still not certain they're gonna win this game. I'm not certain they're gonna not. I mean, I think there is a strong chance they end up getting rolled here, but I think Saya player could be good. I think Swan could be good starts. Now that we know awesome guy / SNT is not going to be playing. Swan could be a sleeper tank pick if you're doing like a best game. So if you don't have like options, or your options suck, that's an option there. But even then, I'm still really, I would be very hard pressed to see me start a Florida player.
Yeah, I'm as confident in the matchup as I can be, and because Atlanta is coming in and it's their their first game, or maybe their second game here, looks like second game. So just that first weekend, the jitters, that they're going to be as bad as I think they're going to be. But even with all as much confidence as I think I can possibly muster for Florida, it's going to be a very close game. I think Atlanta's the better built team overall. It's only the kind of week one window that makes me have a little hope here for Florida, but I'm so unconfident in their playing time situation that, like you said, Hagelpin feels like the only one that I can even consider. All right, well, that's all 20 teams, and not too bad time-wise. I think we did pretty okay, since the rest of it's kind of quick-hit stuff. I just want to give everybody a reminder of the suspended players. Do not, under any circumstances, start these players this week. That's Neko, Violet, Color Hex, Crystal, Ripa, and Apply. If you won't apply, just drop them. Just do yourself a favor. I promise you, you're not going to regret that one. Okay. But nonetheless, he is suspended, so we're going to mention it until he's not anymore. But yeah, so let's move right into the sleepers of the week here. We're starting from scratch, so we're alternating. I talk most of the show, so Asmith gets to pick two of these first. Blevins picks last because he shows up when he feels like it. So we're not going to have any sleepers from him this week. If you guys are new to the show this year, anything like that, this is the part of the show where we give you somebody that's not a no-brainer, just play him guy that we think has a chance to be, give you a really good week. This isn't the most valuable segment in week one, but it's a staple, and you never know when you're going to be in a situation where you need somebody. Maybe you really believed in Shanghai, so you drafted Fearless, and now you're, what do I do? It can happen to anybody. Who knows? We're 2 days away. Maybe somebody sprains a thumb or something like that, and there's another one. You never know. We're always going to give you guys these sleepers every week. Asmith, start us off with your support sleeper of week one.
All right, support sleeper week one, a Shanghai Dragons player to kick it off, because why not? I'm going to take Luffy here. Yes, I know Shanghai is playing some difficult matchups, especially without main tanks, but they are playing two brand new teams. I say brand new. Vancouver's not really brand new, but they are to the league. So they're playing two brand new to the league teams. There's a possibility. He's got 2 games. He is like their surefire starter. I think Luffy's a really good player. So with that being said, I think he's going to pop off. I don't think he's going to be eligible for our sleeper picks often, especially once Fearless gets back. So I'll take Luffy here.
Sure, I'm going to cheat, is
Yeah,
very
indeed.
important to do with your sleepers of the week. I'm going to take somebody that will be eligible all season long, I think, for the sleeper of the week category, because he'll be benched every other week. That is Sleepy from the San Francisco Shock. We talked about it earlier. With Violet suspended, this guy's going to get 2 games. He's going to get 2 games in very winnable matchups against Dallas and Los Angeles. So I don't expect them to be blowouts in either direction. We like map 5s. And Sleepy was a very, very solid statistical performer for fantasy last year. I think he helped a lot of people with their teams, and helped a lot of people have very successful seasons. So I feel very confident in him as a 1-week fill-in kind of a player. Plug him in and use him, and drop him with just as much confidence as you start him as soon as the weekends. We're going into tanks now. That means I go first. You said it. You were iffy on it. You were leery, but you named my man earlier. I'm going with Zunba from the sold. Oh no, it was Zephyr you were talking about. My bad. The old. Right? Yeah, he came over from Seoul, didn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, the replacement here for Zephyr, Zunba, is going to be my tank sleeper. We think the scoring format really favors the off tank. Also, Zumba's our Zarya specialist over there, right? Like he's the notable.
Zumba is a very, very good Zarya.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering him as a notable Zarya player, so the meta might favor him more than we're expecting. And again, Seoul has the Gladiators in Dallas. That's 2 matchups that I think will be hotly contested. So we got map 5 potential all over the place. That'll be good whether you count both matches, whether you count just one of them. 2 matches is always a benefit for you. So I really like Zunba this week. He feels safe.
Yeah, seems good. I'll take a Rhea here. Hangzhou, the pink team's team. Hangzhou Spark, he's their surefire starter. I don't think he's going to be on this list after week 1. So, you know what? He's an unknown right now. So take him, start him with confidence. He's going to get you points. He's going to do well. I think you probably didn't pay a high price for him. I took him in several of the leagues real late. So I think he's going to be a very startable option here. Run it.
I don't mind it. Who do you got for DPS?
I've got the best, the only. Let's go, dude, McFran. Yes, I know. He was banned. You know, we couldn't say his name, but now that I can, I just can't help but take him. Look, he's rumored to be the carry for Atlanta. They've got a favorable matchups this week outside of Philly. So I think they're going to do pretty well. I think he's going to be a starter. And if he is the carry that they are, play with him until he, gets banned from the league.
Yeah. Jokes aside, I don't think we have to worry about a fast ban like XQC. Very different kind of person, much more quiet, inwardly toxic person that XQC is, which is fine, and we're a lot less likely to get him in trouble. For my money, though, I'm gonna go with Blase. I just don't see how they take him out. I don't like their matchups this week, but again, he gets 2 of them. He's just got to have, 1 map, like maybe on Control. Houston hasn't figured it out yet, and he just pops off on Control and stacks a bunch of kills there. Just a lot of opportunity for Blase to me, whether it's counting both games, counting just 1. I think I like him better if you're just counting 1 than I do if you're counting both, because I can't imagine he puts together a lot of really strong maps with the struggles of Boston. But again, I'm all about safety here, and this is a player that I think is readily available. You might even be able to pick him up off waivers, and he's a guy that's going to be on the stage for 8 maps this week, and I'm just going to lean on that and say that playtime is their most valuable asset, so I'm going to lean on that. Also, side note on DeFran, he's rumored to be the carry, depending on what Discord you're in, because I think he's rumored to be washed up too. It all depends. It all depends. It's risky, but with sleepers, risk is sometimes needed, right? To give you guys an idea, we're going to kind of always break in a little bit with these like fantasy tidbits, things we've learned from our the past fantasy Overwatch and fantasy other sports. DeFran this week is what I would call a Hail Mary play. Okay, if you're looking at your opponent's roster, and it's not necessarily something that comes up often in week 1, but I'll tell you, it comes up very often at the end of a season when you're getting close to playoffs. I'm looking across the team. I'm one spot out of the playoffs. I play against the number 1 team in the league that week. So I know I need a Hail Mary. I need somebody that, yeah, sure, he might put up 5 points, but he also could put up 500. He kind of has that potential. You shoot the home run, or you hit the home run, or you try to go for the player with a lot of variance, because you just need to get lucky. You need to spike that big performance when he's in your lineup. I think DeFran's a really good player for a situation like that. So if you don't like how your draft went and you think you're playing against what's going to be the best team in the league, maybe that's a situation where you go with a DeFran or a Blase, because it's possible they do very, very well, even if not a safe pick. But yeah, anyways, moving along, we've got one more little quick fire fun segment that we like to do. You guys, if you're regular listeners, you'll know we must. This is where we answer a meme question from one of our fans from Discord, the Bellman. He wants to know, Asmith, if you were stuck on a deserted island and you could only play 1v1 Overwatch against one player from Overwatch League, who would it be and why?
Ooh, tough question. I've got a toss-up here. I think I'm going to take the most recent addition to the Overwatch League. I'm going to take Dogman here. I think the guy has a lot of good things to say. I think we wouldn't get bored for a while. He's got an interesting hero pool. I might be able to beat him in tanks. Doubt it. Really doubt it.
You can't.
But hey, we'll see. So, I don't know. I think it'd be fun. I think he's probably the most interesting person, one of the most interesting people I'll be able to talk to, and he speaks English. So,
You're not wrong, and those are all good reasons. I'm going with very different logic for this. I'm going in under the assumption that I'm getting off of this island someday, okay? And when I get off of this island, I'm going to be very much so looking to play real Overwatch again. So I want to leave this island the best player I possibly can be. We've got a lot of time to play against each other, so I want to be a very well-rounded player. Hey, Smith, who's the most flexible player in Overwatch League?
Flower?
No.
Oh, dang.
It's
That's
Nevix.
close.
It's Nevix.
Okay.
I'm picking Nevix. The man's played every single role at a competitive level. I don't know anything about Nevix personally, but I think there's it's not the right term. What's the, like, you get attached to your abductors. Oh God,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, something syndrome or whatever.
Yeah.
I think in a situation where you're stranded on a deserted island, as long as Nevix isn't like a complete jerk, and I have no reason to think he is, I think I'd get along with him and we'd become friends. So I'm going to let that problem solve itself, and I'm going to take somebody that can turn me into, Stockholm Syndrome. Thank you, chat. Thank you so much. Okay.
There we go. Stockholm Syndrome.
We got there. Shout outs to Gasroll for the clutch save. But yeah, it's I just think he's going to be able to play every matchup I could ever want to learn. He can play the other side of it very, very well. I don't know how much it would benefit him to be stuck in that situation, but maybe he'd be less bored for my presence on the island. So yeah, I'm going with Nevix because I want to leave just about as flexible as he is by the time I get off that island.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, flexible, but not as good. The age thing will keep me from ever being that good. But yeah.
Hey, you never know. I mean, you could learn another language. Doesn't he speak like 3?
I don't know. He's clearly smarter and better than me in most every way possible. A. Smith, thanks for bringing it up. But at least I have a longer beard. And that is really all that matters. I mean, at least on the High Noon podcast, on this Twitch channel, the size of the beard matters more than most things. So, but all right, A. Smith, that wraps up our week 1 preview, guys. Make sure you get your lineups in. If you are fans of the show and you're in our Discord, make sure you guys get your power rankings contests in. We have pick'em leagues on the highnoon.gg website. Also an unlimited fantasy league. It's Foul Play branded. Make sure you guys get in that if you're a fan. I'm not super sure how active we're going to be in that one in particular. I think A. Smith said you were going to keep up with it pretty well.
I'll do it, man. You're just picking the best players every week.
Yeah.
Just picked up the best players every week, so.
I'm so spoiled by DraftKings. It's not like my favorite format in the world, but at least for like the first, I'd say 2 stages at least, I'll be really active. But that's all I'll absolutely guarantee. But nonetheless, play against some of the other fans of the show. maybe you guys can get some traditional leagues started out of that player base, something like that. Should be a good time. It's just more opportunity to talk and goof around and meme about Overwatch League. So that's always
and win
fun
some sweet prizes.
Yes, we have not announced the prizes for those leagues yet, but however, we will be doing them. Spoiler alert, the prizes for the Unlimited League are probably going to be less than the Pick'em League. So if you're all about the prizes, make sure you get in the Pick'em League. But we'll see. We haven't, I don't think, gotten a grip on our finances since we went to New York and then Los Angeles. And we had a lot of bouncing around last year to do, but we are definitely going to be prizing them. We just don't have it figured out yet. So, all right, for Asmith, for the absentee, the Blevins, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you all next week.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding my God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find my